doing?
Well, how is the chairman doing?
Fine, thank you. Everything good in your family?
It is.
Good. Saw your granddaughter the other day. Holy moly. Cute kid. All right. Purpose of the workshop. We do pledge allegiance or anything? Am I missing something? We can wait for the selectmen's meeting for that. Hope you all had a good Veterans Day. Your husband enjoy the Veterans Day?
Absolutely.
Good. All righty. We're going to talk over the process. Let me open up and ask Shane to kick it off here and get us going.
So I think there's two items on the agenda, is that right? For the workshop?
Yeah, after the workshop, we'll bring them up as additions to the
Okay.
meeting.
So the first one we can talk about is the actual project for the Loon Lake Road. If you all recall, I think there was on the May 14th select board meeting, the town manager presented an MPI grant and an MBRC grant to fix about just over a mile of section of Loon Lake Road from where the airport project stops down to the school. And so that kind of went through. We learned that NBRC didn't come through this year. We learned that the grant, there was nothing wrong with it per se. Feel free to kick in on any of this too. Because, and you know, Daryl's just as an integral part of this as well. He's been working on the grant side, just trying to help figure some of that stuff out. So we learned that there was nothing wrong with that application. It was more about maybe weren't shovel ready, which is not a bad thing. So we're going to actually maybe look at getting into that a little bit later. We'll talk about that in a minute. Why we're here tonight is DOT, Mark Hume, actually contacted me and said that they're ready. This project in the MPI process, which is the Municipal Partnership Initiative, is a $500,000 funding 50-50 match that says they'll go in and they'll help reconstruct roads and whatnot. So they said they approved this project, and they said it was for 2020. He called me about 2.5 weeks ago and said that they had another project drop off for 2019, and so there was an open slot for another project to go in 2019. So he said, is Rangeley ready? So I contacted Rebecca and Daryl, town manager, and we talked about it. So basically, I'm here to kind of present that tonight as an option. The DOT needs an answer by this Wednesday. They have their last commissioners meeting, so they're looking to decide on that budget. But if we just look at numbers behind me on the board, we kind of wrote out some of the numbers. So I've estimated a total project cost of $900,000 and change. That estimate is based on 4,000 feet of reconstruction, 2,000 feet of an overlay, and 6,000 feet of sidewalk. And overlay, I really mean rehab. Drainage, basically from that section at the school up to where we are realigning the road. And the basis of the project is to get better access to the industrial park, some of those places that, so we don't post the road. And we can provide better, heavier truck traffic to those, to that industrial park. So, and chime in. So basically what we did is, so the MPI grant will cover half of that. So it's a 50-50 match up to 500,000. So if we take half of 902, we get 451 and change. As part of this project and as part of the grant application, we went to M&H and we said, would you guys be willing to do a private-public partnership and donate into the project? They said, yep, we'll kick in 50 grand. So we put that in our grant applications and sent those in. So, yep.
It's not just like 50 grand cash, it's 50 grand worth of material.
That's what I was going to ask Rebecca, because I remember the last time they agreed to this with the last grant application, they said in materials.
Yep. Which is basically towards that local share, that 50% local share.
Doesn't
So-
have to be all cash match, it's
Right.
in kind, there's no financial equivalent to go with cash.
Yeah, I thought they made it pretty clear that it would be in materials.
Yeah. Good point.
Yep. And so as part of that too, so basically, so we'll subtract out 50,000 off of that. And then the town force account, basically I wrote to Mark Hume and I asked him, can the town use their resources as local match to the project? And he reaffirmed that, sent me an email saying, yes, they can. So I suspect I know we'll have materials from Chick Hill that we can use in the reconstruction of the road. And I've estimated that to be about 150,000. So subtract all that stuff out, now we're down to about 250,000 is what the local match we need to meet. Possible funding sources that we've listed out here. Probably the biggest one we're looking at is the Northern Borders Regional Commission. We're gonna revamp that grant application, we're gonna resubmit it. That's up to $500,000. So I think we've got a pretty good shot of that, but again, it's a grant funding process. The road project, why am I drawing a blank on that?
The road project, and I should have erased that, and I apologize.
A little bit louder, please.
That should have been erased, I apologize, take that,
Okay.
I'll erase it right now.
Yeah, maybe that's
Because
one.
after discussion, it was decided to not to use that.
So, Chick Hill income, which we'll talk about in a minute, but basically that's more funding coming from the use of Chick Hill materials, and that was kind of provided in the packet. DECD and USDA Rural Development, that's Daryl's bailiwick here, and he's gonna be working towards seeing if there's any money there. And then also in the end, state aid portion, which John has brought up. So,
Can I?
yeah,
elaborate? I brought
absolutely.
it up in the sense that even if the town had to borrow the 251,000 for road construction, then you could utilize your state aid road money that you get every year to pay that debt. And you take in now about $34,000 a year that has to go to major road projects, not just like overlay or anything, but when you rebuild a road, you can use that state aid road money. So, and part of that can be used to pay down debt for a project like this. So, when I looked at that, I thought, a 10-year bond or a note with a bank, $34,000 a year would more than pay for that over that time, if you had to do that.
Ugh, I just the thought of borrowing money is,
Remember, these are all options. Everything's on the table here. Can you talk a little bit about the grant process, the other two?
Yeah,
Fill us in on.
DECD, Department of Economic and Community Development, they have different funding sources that range from public infrastructure, some facilities money, and some discretionary funds that you can use for economic development. So if there's some infrastructure that we can do that maybe supports, quote, the industrial park, which is an economic multiplier to potentially create a few jobs, there's some money that we can tap into for them, up to $200,000-300,000. USDA Rural Development is based out of Lewiston office that covers this area. If there's any sewer, water kinds of infrastructure that goes with road, they won't fund roads, but if there's any of that, there's some supplemental funding that they have through public facilities that can be $100,000 or so, and some of that could be a grant/loan, but it also, all these things pieced together could give us a very strong project with a lot of partners involved, and I think the town can have this done without having to have any financial, per se, that the town would have to pay towards this project. So I think that's, a good opportunity.
And the genesis of the project really was, it stemmed from, actually Rebecca and Keith went to a training that I went to through the state DOT called LPA, a Local Project Administrator. And it basically is a training so that these kind of projects, we can help facilitate and manage the projects locally as opposed to a DOT person. And when we were there, we actually learned of this particular MPI grant process through the State Municipal Partnership Initiative. And so after we got done with that, we said, well, geez, it's $500,000. What projects can we do? And we sat, it was us, Daryl, Keith,
Me and,
Right, Pierce.
Ray Pierce, yeah.
Jeff Preble, yeah.
Jeff Preble, and we sat around the table and said, what projects do we have that could fit into this type of grant funding. And I think the only one that really rose to the top was the fix of this Loon Lake Road. I mean, clearly, I've been up that road several times, and it's, especially in the spring, can be very bumpy and get airborne on a few things. So we thought, hey, that's the project we'll chase after. So that's really the genesis of the project.
Yeah, I like the value added too with the sidewalks for the safety of commuting through the schools, that's there. It'll benefit that too, safety plus the economic development to go with community infrastructure. That's what I really think is a win-win taking that approach.
Mm-hmm. Larry, you got some?
Question I had was, is the road, I asked Shane earlier, he wasn't sure. Waste Management uses that road all winter. Do they have a pass because of the dump? Or is that road exempt from 100,000 tons?
It has a municipal exemption for all municipal needs.
So would fulfill the industrial park exemption. That exemption would not allow some type of industrial development.
No, when they post the roads, there are only certain things that can get through on a regular basis, all based on town needs or human needs. As an example, oil trucks full can go right up through there.
Anytime.
Food trucks,
Fire truck.
But
Fire
fire trucks, but Waste Management is probably 70, 80,000 pounds coming out of there sometimes in the spring. So
absolutely.
they must have an exemption for a road pass,
Yeah.
or they just let it happen.
No, they have an exemption. I mean, it's a municipal service. Yeah. Yeah. Anything else? Any other questions? Okay.
If I can add to that, I mean, in this discussion, and through, the MBRC grant and all this, the industrial park, well, it's not used. It is a tax base that we could bring in to the town. I mean, it's revenue for the town. There's workforce housing up there. And Loon Lake Road is infrastructure between downtown, the airport, the industrial zone, housing developments, and within a downtown revitalization plan, trying to be business friendly. This is a huge opportunity for the town of Rangeley.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, is the industrial park still listed as an industrial park?
Yes.
Because I remember years ago, we talked about just not having it, because nobody ever used it. But it's still
zoned as.
zoned as a, okay.
That's the only place that's zoned heavy industrial.
Right, and that could be a real opportunity for the community, I think.
Any chance about putting our own waste dump up there? Mine.
Well, the three major sources of traffic up and down that road are municipally oriented. The dump, the airport, the school.
Why wouldn't we use a piece of that M&H industrial property for some type of a landfill that was compatible?
Maybe?
We don't need it. Our landfill is capped and treated. We are
No, like
shipping.
brush, grindings, whatever, you're
Yeah.
fucking that off,
No, they come and grind on location.
and where's it go?
They chip it and take it.
That's what I meant to, so is any of that old mine up there, would that work for that type of thing?
I don't know if it'll work, but it's certainly something that could be explored. Yeah. How about the board? Any questions? Dave, Donnie? Yes, Cindy?
So John, you mentioned the state aid road funds. I'm wondering if those are allocated. We've got this, this roads improvement project. I didn't know if any of those funds were kind of worked into.
No.
Okay. So
No,
this,
and every year, by August 1st, I believe, we have to report to the state how those funds are spent. And they can be saved each year to save toward a major project. And those can be used for any local road, but this particular road is a state aid road, and that's why the state NPI fund is in there, because it's actually their responsibility to take care of state aid roads. They just won't do it, but in this program, they'll build it up to what the town's needs are, provided we pay half, and they pay half.
and so our half, okay, so the town force account, is, Shane, you said is based on what can be taken from Chick Hill that's acceptable and can be used in this project, in this roads project. And so do we need extra material from M&H? Is that something, if we're using our own resources, is that actually something of value?
Let's remember a couple of things. Number one, what we're taking out of Chick Hill may not be the a finished grade product, it's a rough grade product, so it would be a compactable product. There's certainly going to be materials, and again, I'm speaking for Shane and his company, but I was done enough road construction in my life to know that there are multiple layers of material that need to go into a road, and Chick Hill doesn't provide all of that.
Okay.
But it's also, as part of the grant, you have to have a public partnership, so
We need the
that
public
Yeah.
partnerships.
Good point.
qualify
Yeah.
us for the grant.
Also, Chick Hill stuff just fell.
Mr. Coop?
It's not,
Now, I asked a question for John. Is that $31,000 that you speak of spent now, or you have to have reconstruction to spend it? You said you already,
It has to be a major
no,
project.
so you're storing it now, or you're not spending it?
I'd have to look and see what we've done in the past.
Because if you're already using the 31,000, you're taking it away from something else,
I
that's
know
really
this,
not 31,000.
yeah, I know this summer Keith prepared a report on what we had spent.
Just,
so far.
I mean, just food for thought, because if you're already using it on small projects and absorbing it, it's not there anymore.
No, but what I brought to the discussion is that could be used to pay debt for a major road.
It could, but if you're already using it to buy down,
But we get it every year. Every year we get
you know, if you're
34,000.
already using it in other departments, for highway departments in general.
What he's saying is it's not earmarked.
It's not earmarked, right. And it can't be used for routine maintenance. It can
Oh,
only
okay, that
be
was
used
just my
for.
question. You're not burning it now, you're not
No,
spending it.
not for routine maintenance.
Rebecca?
So just kind of a recap, and kind of go into another funding source so we can look at it. So, I mean, yeah, 250,000, we do have options in regards to the Northern Borders. I have to say, he's been on the horn. As soon as we got that call from our Cume, he's been on the phone talking to everybody he possibly can in regards to the Northern Borders grant. It's a huge possibility that this is
Yeah.
going to come through this year, because if we agree, if you guys vote today to go move forward, we would be shovel ready, and I think that was really
That was
the
the
only
big thing.
issue.
That was the big thing?
Because I talked to Diane Jackson from the governor's office, because it ends up in the governor's office for final approval. And that's what it kind of looked like, was everybody else seemed to be shovel ready.
Yeah,
Similar to, let's do opportunity zones, okay, we're picking here, picking there.
yeah.
So, but this will strengthen our project that much more.
Just the thought of borrowing money for more money,
Yeah.
I just am so opposed to that. Especially if we could, you know, if we were gonna plan on doing this in 2020 anyway, and that gives us more time, or you more time, Daryl, or, you know, to research those options, because
Well, with that being said, I mean, we do have another option, and that is the Chick Hill income. So, and Shane?
Go ahead, Shane, why don't you?
Yeah, sure. Yep, that's a good segue. So the second part of the workshop is, just, again, I put an email together and I sent it to Rebecca and she put it in your packet, but, so basically the gist is, when we started the airport project, many, many moons ago, we said, look, and I wanna make it clear that this right here that I'm gonna talk to you about is totally separate from the airport project. But there's some history there, so I wanna make sure everybody understands that. So when we first started with that project, we thought, we knew at that point there was probably gonna be a 5% share. So we said, okay, we're gonna use Chick Hill as a local match. And everyone was okay with that. I coordinated with FAA, all that stuff, and that's how we went. I discussed with Luke Garrison at the FAA and negotiate all that stuff, and I've done that with many other projects, Caribou, Old Town, Princeton, Greenville, and I can definitely list off all that stuff. But as we know, earlier this year, we learned that we got a 100% grant through the omnibus for that project. So Luke called me right up and said, geez, you don't need force account anymore. And I said, hold on a second. I said, there's still a ton of value to the town there. There's hundreds of thousands of dollars. There's $600,000 there or more. And I said, they're just not gonna wanna give that to the project. Because really that wouldn't be a town savings, that would be an FAA savings, considering they're the lion's share of that project. So what he agreed to was to doing force account just for the borrow material and not the gravels. So there were several components to that. There were borrow material and gravels. And seeing how as the borrow material covered all of that previous project, so the planning grant, the environmental grant, the final design, that all has a local 5% share. It's still all that is due. The construction now is the one that's 100%. So there's still that local share that we were still going after. So that 600,000, I said, yep, that's what we need that for. We need it for that, but also for future airport projects, or future airport needs. And I think I stuck in the packet there, I'm pretty sure I did, the letter from FA, and, you know, basically says, as a result, all excess funds must be considered airport revenue and may not be used other than airport use. So airport use, take that what that means.
On the road to the airport?
That's probably stretching it a little bit, but, you know, I think where you run afoul, or where you run afoul is if someone audits. So I don't necessarily want to say yes or no to that. So anyway, that's where we kind of left off. Now, so there's still a gravel component. And so what I did was, and I also provided in the packet, I did this in Greenville 2 years ago. And I worked with the town manager, John Simcoe, and I put this in the packet. Kind of just shows you a letter of what I did. But the town had a resource, and I was able to negotiate with the contractor to use that resource. And it was a resource that the FA didn't really want to use. And so I was able to get them a check cut. I put 104,000. Actually, was corrected yesterday. It was actually 102,000. That the contractor, who just happens to be the same contractor we're using this time around, was able to, you know, get a check cut for 102,000 that they used in that project for their local share. So they had a local share of 165,000, and we were able to get them just under 200,000. So that was their project was paid for. That was a parallel taxiway that they put together. So basically, what I'm trying to do here is what I'm looking to do here is actually, you know, actually have a separate contract with the town to help negotiate the best price for that gravel with the contractor. And so that's what I spelled out here in this. We call it agency promotion agreement, but just it's an agent, you know, agreement, and it goes through, you know, basically everything from, you know, the appointment, all my duties and responsibilities, how I get paid. You know, basically, if we get down to the nitty gritty, because that's really what we're probably looking for, is the payment really is if the town doesn't get any money, I don't get any money. If the town does get money, it's on a sliding scale. I put the first, you know, 5% for 150,000. From 150 to 300,000 is another 5%, and then anything over 300,000 is 10%. And I'll preface this by saying, look, this is a draft agreement. You know, you know, John and I have already talked about some changes that I think are good that he suggested. And so, I guess with that, my estimate, based on what I did in Greenville, and what I think there is, I think there's a couple $100,000 worth of money that, again, the town can see as revenue. And this is not tied to the FA, so it doesn't have the strings, like I know you had brought up the point about, can we use that force account money for other things? Well, that force account, because it's funded through the federal process, has those strings. This wouldn't be that way. It's totally separate. It's a contract between the town and the contractor. So that's how that works. And in this contract here, this agreement is just, you're asking me to negotiate that with the contractor and get the best price. So,
Can I add something?
yeah.
Sargent for the gravels does not have to use material from Chick Hill, they can go somewhere else. So this is an opportunity to say, hey, we have the material, buy it from us, and that way we can make a profit, continue to make a profit off of that. And it, like he said, it could be used for for our share of Loon Lake Road at the MBRC grant.
That was my question, Steve. Shane, is it more cost effective to make product at the airport than it is to truck it in?
Yeah.
So you can make a yard of material up there of base material cheaper than you can haul it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So the savings is the offset.
Sure, is the trucking.
I mean, $10 a yard inbound, and
Right.
you can make it for $7.
Yep.
Yeah, I just made those numbers up.
Sure, yeah, no, understand. Yep, definitely cheaper to get something on site.
So if you need 100,000 yards for the road, you'd save, in my numbers, 30 grand. The offset.
Yeah, you'd save some money, whether there's 30 grand or whatnot, yeah, that's to be determined.
I would think that with how the bidding, how, is it Stevens that got the,
Sorry.
Sergeant that got the bid? I would think that their figures were derived from the immediate availability of the materials at Chick Hill, as opposed to trucking in. Because at that point in time, it was required, you know, it was.
I was saying, it's more expensive, but you have the offset. more.
Yeah, but, I mean, that would, I mean, because they've got to figure in, or they're figuring in, you know,
Last payment.
yeah, that's like, okay, well, the materials are right there, as opposed to paying someone to bring it in, so I would be, I'd find it strange that they would go elsewhere for materials where, you know, when they bid on the project, I would think that, you know, it was based on the availability of.
Absolutely, yep.
Well, if that's
So
the case,
that really isn't a selling point to me, for, you know, just to be honest. And I guess, you know, why do we need this agreement, Shane, if we were all set before going into this, and, you know, with the implication, the expectation of them borrowing? I guess I don't understand why now we need an agreement with you as agent. Whereas before, it was, you know, we knew this money was coming, you know, though it had the label of the force account on it. Now the FAA has pared it down to just embankment fill materials,
Right.
but it's still a force account.
Yeah.
So I guess I don't understand why you're needed.
So,
Why
Yeah.
a separate agreement?
Why a separate
Yeah.
agreement when
To
this
put
was
in a
all
middle
part
person when
of?
you're already part of the same project?
Yeah,
There's two
well,
projects
I
we're
wanna-
talking about here.
yeah, I wanna,
Yeah, this is
I wanna make
separate.
sure I separate that,
Okay.
because the FAA basically said, look, we don't wanna deal with the gravel part of it. So they're just doing the borrow material, okay? So the gravel's, what they said is, look, you're gonna have to go and get that elsewhere. Don't bother with that. So that's where I come into play. I wanna be able to negotiate that price with you guys, with the contractor. Because there's value again, because I mean, in all honesty, they could come to you and they could absolutely come to you and say, hey, we wanna buy gravels from the town. But that,
I guess I thought that, I'm sorry Shane, I don't mean to interrupt. I thought that figure was already worked in, you know, the value of that borrow per, you know, however it's measured, because like I said, I mean, I'm asking questions because I don't know. I mean, is it a cubic yard? I mean, there was already a value assigned to that cubic yard
Right.
in the cost, so why would it be negotiated any differently when it's,
Can
yeah, please.
Because Chick Hill, they're blasting material, and that material is basically used for fill.
yeah,
Fill in the void. But when they get to the point where they need to do the finished product under the runway, they need gravel. They need something that's gonna compact, it has to meet federal regulations, I assume, right? Sergeant didn't necessarily anticipate getting the gravel from Chick Hill. They may have anticipated getting the gravel from a source outside of Chick Hill.
we were told that they were gonna make everything out of the stone that was there. They were gonna mine it to the level they needed it.
No?
Is that right?
No.
yeah, so the premises of the, you're absolutely correct. The premise of the bid that Sergeant put together was they were gonna use that material for everything. Yep, absolutely. So when the FA came back and said, now it's 100% grant award, you don't need that local share. I said, no, they do need that local share. That still has value to the town. So we could go forward and still use that material for the project with Sergeant use that, but that's gonna be a bonus for them, and there's value to that material right now. And there's more value to that material to the town than what they bid. So what this agreement does is it takes basically I'm the agent to try to help you get the best value out of that gap.
So you're not gonna close that hole, you're gonna leave that open longer after the airport project?
Close the hole. Well, it's
Well, in the contract, it says that the contractor's gonna close that hole.
no, it's a pit.
It's gonna
It's
remain.
been permanent as a pit, yeah.
Oh, because I understood they were gonna reclaim it. at the end of the project in the contract agreement?
No, there may be some stuff around the edges that they do, but, yeah. No, it'll stay as a quarry, as
Do you
far
think
as
they
a
were
quarry.
supposed to reclaim it?
No, because I thought they were prepping it for a hole to begin with, another lagoon.
Build a shopping mall there like you're doing before.
So, because of the 100% grant, they don't have to buy the fill from, they don't have to get the fill from Chick Hill.
Correct.
So, whatever they take out of there,
There's value to that.
there's value because we're gonna get reimbursed for it in a force account.
Nope, force account is already, that's just the bar
Oh.
material, not gravels, yeah.
So it doesn't include the final gravel, just whatever we've used for fill.
Right. Yep.
So that was my question, Shane. Is it cheaper to process it to completed material than it is to haul it in?
It is, yep.
So why would you go anywhere for any material?
That was my point. That's my point. They bid on this project with the availability of the material,
Shared, turn it over.
500 feet away or
Yeah, no,
whatever.
and absolutely, they are. They're gonna wanna stay there and do that.
With a dollar value already assigned, which they had budgeted, so I don't.
So what they.
this is why I don't understand this, Shane. I'm just,
Well, yeah, no, let me,
I-
so they budgeted like, I'm just gonna use round numbers, like $5 in their bid to do that. What I'm saying is that there is more value than $5 to that. There's more than $5, there's $15 a cubic yard to that. I'm using round numbers there.
yeah. But why would they pay more when they've already, you've already submitted this 11 million some odd $1,000? Why would they pay more?
Well, there's
If-
value in quantity. The road would take as
I mean,
much as.
They've already budgeted their costs based on the
Um,
value of the cubic yard material at Chick Hill.
I guess the quick answer to that is, we as a town could say, look, you need to get your resource elsewhere. They know that they can get it cheaper at Chick Hill.
But also this volume, I think 640,000 yards they need.
I mean, at the end of the day, there's a couple $100,000 that we're looking at as coming into the town coffers to do.
The embankment fill
Yeah.
materials.
Okay, 1 second. Trish?
Can I ask a question? Are you questioning whether they're going to say, we were gonna sell it to Sergeant for $5 for the airport project, but now we're gonna sell it for 15 for the airport project?
Yeah, I just don't
When
know
he's
why.
saying it's gonna be 15 for the road project. It would still be 5 for the airport project. Am I right or wrong, Shane, on that?
So maybe I've missed the boat altogether.
That's why I said, Cindy, there's 2 projects you're talking
Well-
about,
Yeah,
and you're
that's-
confusing the two.
Well, I guess I expected this to be a part of the road discussion then, and not a part
Well,
of
we
the
had
airport.
moved to the road discussion.
No, we were done with the road discussion, and we had moved
Now what
to
are they-
this FAA reduced force account, that they're only going to use the embankment fill materials with an estimated value of $200,000. So this agreement is for the road only?
Well, the way the agreement's written, it's actually for,
Any municipal project that we do with this material, correct?
yeah, that's
Oh,
where
so
we're
this
headed.
doesn't include the airport project?
It does include the airport
Okay,
project.
so that's my sticking point.
It
That's
includes
my
the airport
sticking point
project and
right there,
it-
because we've
What does
already,
that mean?
we've already indicated,
Well, we did too, and let them continue then.
we've already indicated a value, so I think this should be omitted from the airport project, because it's already an assigned dollar value per cubic yard. And why would the town pay an agent to negotiate a value that already exists? And that they already bid on? I guess that's where I'm.
The value doesn't exist right now. The value is right now is like $5 a yard, and I'm telling you that you can probably get $15 a yard.
But Sergeant already bid based on what the town said was the value of the borrow. Are you getting me for the, that's why I think the
But
airport,
they bid that because they knew it was already on site. That
Right.
all they had to do was process it and put it in place.
right,
That's what they did. Yeah.
Still on, so
that's, and it's still on site.
there's
Still
something
there.
I think we're missing.
Yeah, there's something that's not,
Piece we're missing, and I think they did $5 a yard as a whole, 650,000 yards. Okay. Some of that material does not have to be processed as fine as the other material. Right now, they're putting in stuff whenever they can blow.
Here's the piece that I think we're missing, is way back when we first looked at force account, we looked at gravels we looked at borrow material. And the total of that was about $1 to $1.2 million, okay? So then, that maybe is the missing part, and that, I don't know, maybe that was just something I missed saying to you at this second, but 1.2 million. So now the FAA said, nope, we're only gonna do borrow material, 600,000. So there's this extra bit of money that the FAA says, we don't want any part of that, not with this project because it's 100% paid for. So all I'm trying to do is capture that money.
So the town actually gets paid for material that's going to be used.
So, okay, so that's what's missing.
Oh,
That's, all right, so why? Okay, so how is this going to be tracked before? I mean, it's still,
Same way it's tracked now.
okay, so we would have needed to hire you as an agent, even if the force account would have been at 500,000 or 600,000?
So before, the force account, you, again, that's, remember, I just wanna make sure that that's separated. The force account, you guys, yes, you have paid, you have contracted with D&K to do that work, to negotiate that with the FAA. This other half, no, haven't done anything with that, and that's what this is for. That's what this agent is for.
so if you're successful, the FAA's gonna up the ante on the value?
No, the FAA has nothing to do with that, this half. Absolutely
No.
nothing to do with the half.
So the town was gonna get, say, round number, $600,000 for the gravel or fill they got from Chick Hill as part of their 5% match. Right?
So I understand.
In the beginning,
In the very beginning, they were gonna get more than that. They were gonna get about $1 million.
the
Yep,
town wasn't.
the town was, yep.
Yeah.
And that got back down to 600,000 after we learned that it was
Which was
only,
gonna be the 5% match.
yep, yep.
So we're not getting that 5% match,
Right.
but that's still going into Chick Hill, but it's more than 600,000, it's 1.2 million.
It
So
could
the
be
six-
more than 600,000 if
So
it's
there's-
negotiated
So there's
correctly.
$600,000 worth of extra gravels that are going into this that we're not getting compensated for.
Right, because, I mean.
So we're trying to get compensated for it.
Well, I mean, but basically, if the FAA has agreed, that they are improving embankment fill materials, okay? So that's, which was a part of the original quote, okay, a part of the original what Sargent responded to.
Yep.
As opposed to, which has a value of up to maybe $200,000, okay? So now it went from $1 million to 600,000, now to 200,000, which all would have needed to have been tracked, one way or another, yet this agreement is just now being presented. So I'm wondering, why does the airport need to be involved with this if it's already been, if the value of the embankment fill material has already been determined, why we need it negotiated?
It doesn't need to be, yes, you're right, it all needed to be tracked. But that price, that's the part that's being missed, is the price isn't negotiated. Again, there's a value there that the town can take advantage of. I can get Sargent to write you a check, the town of Rangeley, for $200,000. Here you go.
But it's the FAA that's going to be,
No,
No,
No.
it's separate.
no, FAA's portion stops at the 600,000 with force account. They're done.
but that's not here nor there now.
There's no what? I missed that.
All this material is getting tracked. Everything that goes into that project is getting tracked. The separate part is, that I think the difficult part is when they said, we're only gonna do the borrow material. The gravels aren't included. We don't wanna do that. Now that it's an omnibus grant, 100%, we don't wanna include that. So again, that just freed up a bunch of value to the town. And again, I did that, I did this same exact thing in Greenville. So it's all gonna get counted. It's all gonna get counted through the project.
At the predetermined price, I would imagine.
of $5 a
I
yard.
don't know why you keep saying predetermined, Cindy. Who-
Because
Because you
Sergeant
have an
had to
estimate.
respond. Sergeant,
I'm not understanding.
so Sergeant had to.
Sergeant bid on a
Yes,
project,
bid, based on a cubic yard value.
and you have no idea what they based their bid process on.
It's all itemized out. I mean, they had to provide, I
Right.
mean, because it's low bid. That's why they got it. So they had to itemize and supply information to the satisfaction of Du Bois King and the FAA, so they assigned a value to the borrow per cubic yard.
They did, they based their price on the fact that that material was gonna get force account through FAA. But now that material is not.
Is it of a different value if the FAA was gonna use it in the first place?
Absolutely.
Okay, so that's the difference between the $5 and the $15.
Yeah, yep.
Okay.
But if we've already quoted it, we can't go
I guess
back
that,
and
we've already quoted
pay
it.
the rate, you know what I mean? I'm like, someone's building a house, that's the best way I can describe it. Someone's building a house, you have a subcontractor that gives you X amount of money. If you go over that, then you have to pay for the out of pocket. So to me, I would have thought in our original presentation that that would have been part of a cost that we would have charged per cubic feet. That we would have given them, and I don't know how I feel about us going back and saying, well, we're gonna charge you more, cause you gave us 100%. I mean, I don't wanna,
We're not charging the
Yeah.
FAA more. Nobody's charging.
Yeah, remember, the FAA's paying for all this.
okay,
The FAA's paying, so it's coming out of their coffers to pay that $5.
Right.
What they basically said
based on a
is,
certain dollar amount.
yeah, based on a certain dollar amount, and basically they said, okay, now that unit price, it was based on getting force account, now it's not, so go get the contractor, have them do a change order, do that totally
Okay.
different, so that they get that from another source, yeah.
Okay, so, all right, that I get.
So the slopes were gonna be brought in, but now you're saying build them with our material?
Start again, Larry?
The slopes were gonna be done with imported material, but now they're not.
No, no, the FAA has just said, okay, this is the only thing that will qualify for force account funds. It was included in with the 600,000 before, but now they've pared it down, they're like, okay.
Now they said, since
Shane,
we're
okay,
paying,
Shane, we'll give you that, as far as what can qualify as force account funds.
and now that they're saying, now that they've got 100% funding, they're funding 100% of that project, they said, look, and I don't know why, the only reason I can think of is, when I've done past projects, and we've done force account, they're not used to big numbers. They balked on big numbers before. And so, I remember in Old Town, we got about $350,000 in force account. And I struggled to get that, but it was a quantity thing. It was a scale thing, it was a big project. And this one, big project. And they saw 1 million, 1.2 million, they were like, And it's just I don't know why, but they always had that issue. So that's why they said, pare it down, we'll stick with the 600,000. That's the biggest force account they've done that I've seen them do.
So when they bid on this at $5, the FAA was subsidizing part of that, yes? No? I mean, how are they gonna, it's still in the same place.
Because of mass, I think, they were able to do it for $5.
I mean,
The reason they were doing it for $5 is because, yeah, it was on site, it was local.
it's still on site.
And the mass. 600,000 yards is gonna be a lot cheaper than 100,000.
My point is, it's still there, it's not gone anywhere.
Yeah, but you're absolutely correct, but the FAA said, look, we don't want to use
got all
material.
that part,
We don't want to use that material anymore.
right.
So now, say that material is just not available, so that
Right.
what they're saying is, contractor, go somewhere else and get it. What I'm saying is, there's a value still there, so
So they already know that it's there, they were gonna use it in the first place, yes? Okay.
Yeah.
So why,
The FAA is willing to pay more for that resource now, is
the
really what
FAA
it
is
comes
not
down
paying
to.
for it?
They absolutely are.
They're paying 100% of it.
No, I mean, the airport, I'm talking about the road.
Oh, my God. Let's stay on one project. We
Yeah,
have
it's-
to, because it's a totally
Yeah,
different.
I can understand the need for an agent, I mean, with the, with say this road project, because there's an unknown. We don't know what needs to be borrowed, there hasn't been a value assigned to the borrow for the road project for Chick Hill. So basically, all right, in plain English, you're saying let's take advantage of the situation and get as much money as possible.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you make money in the process.
Yeah.
so do we.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, let's not forget that,
It's
because, I mean,
America.
he's estimated,
So, Shane,
So does this, these funds will still end up being tied to the airport?
No,
As
No.
with so the embankment fill materials, that's,
Forest County is tied to the airport.
yes,
This other stuff is not.
that's, okay. So I'm just talking airport embankment fill materials that you're saying you can now negotiate.
No. The embankment materials, I'm not gonna negotiate. That's already set in stone, that's force account, that's
Okay.
600,000. Set that one aside.
All right, I guess that's been my intent, is that, what I was interpreting is that you were going to be the agent for the embankment fill materials as well.
No, absolutely not. No, everything prior to this point in time, all that stuff is taken care of.
Okay.
Yep, town's already paid for that, town's already negotiated that, we've already dealt with that. This is moving forward.
Okay, all right, now, okay, I get it.
so you think, Shane, that you can still, out of a piece of rock at the airport, you can create a product less expensive than Holiday Inn?
Yes.
So,
'Cause I
Steve
did it
Langsdorff
2
hasn't
years
reviewed
ago.
this?
Yeah.
No, but
There should be a time limit,
this has to go to him, because I think we need to make a few changes.
yeah. And there needs to be a start date and an end date, because we need to evaluate how
One,
things have gone.
If you look at point 2, appointment of agent, I'll read it so you can hear what it
No.
says. The town hereby appoints and constitutes agent as its agent for the limited and specific purpose of identifying, researching, developing, marketing, and making contractual arrangements for presentation to the approval by the board with prospective contractors and/or buyers of aggregate and gravel found or located or found at the town's property on Chick Hill and Rangeley, or any other town property which the board may identify and designate possible mineral extraction. My suggestion was
Oh,
that should
3
be
years, okay.
restricted only to town projects, otherwise we're competing with private contractors.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be.
Something
Yeah.
the town shouldn't be doing.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
So if it's for only town projects, which may be, the airport project right now, the Loon Lake Road project, maybe the final, eventual taxiway project that might get funded, who knows? So anything like a town project, then that's what I think needs to be added.
We got Allen Street and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
any other town streets, I mean, we could use our own material for our
Okay.
own projects, which would save the taxpayer.
Okay.
And the other thing is, there's a section on, well, there's a section on the default there. There's no way for the town to get out of this except if the agent defaulted on any of his requirements, and then only after the town notified him and gave him time to cure the default. So my suggestion is there should be a way for both parties to get out of this contract with a 30-day notice or whatever. I mean, that's typical in a lot of contracts. But those two things caught my eye as being important to include. And then
I agree with that, too.
send this off to the town's attorney and have them make sure that, this, especially the second paragraph, is restricted to only town projects.
Okay.
Shelley, do you have anything? Donnie? No. Hey, anything else from the audience? Thank you, Shane.
Thanks.
What type of gravels are you negotiating?
Both the base and sub-base gravels.
What type of system?
I'll be type A and type D, MDOT type A and type D, 3-inch minus, and then I think type A is 1.5 inch minus. It'll be very similar to what they're making already.
All right, thanks, everyone. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
We'll take a few minutes before we start the selectmen's meeting. What was that? Did you say something? That was? Was that yours?